into the GBS showroom. We've got the wiring loom for the car on display. A lot of people ask quite a few questions on the wiring, and not necessarily find it worrying, but aren't that familiar with the electrics of the car. So we thought we'd do a video just running through in a bit more in depth of how the wiring loom works, with it all being the plug and play and all pre-labelled, and how it actually configures into the car and a few of the options that you've got. So we'll have a closer look at it. Right, we're going to have a bit more in-depth look at the GBS wiring harness and the whole electrical system for the Zero. This loom is primarily designed for the Zero, but we've had customers fitting it into many different 7-type cars, even some Escorts, different historics, any sort of rear-wheel drive similar applications, but it's mainly designed for the Zero. So when you get your loom, it comes as the main chassis harness, so you'll get it like this, it'll all come wrapped up. So how your loom works, show you. So you've got your main fuse box and relay box for the car. This mounts into the chassis now on the Gen 2 chassis, actually onto a dedicated bracket, so this can be installed really early on in the build. It dictates the place where all the loom then runs from. You've got your earth points on the loom, one in the centre, one at the front, one at the rear, and then the corresponding earth stud is actually on the chassis ready for it. So again, it makes the loom fit in a set sequence in the right place. So you've got your fuse box, you've then got the front of the car, then going to the rear of the car. So we'll have a look at the front of the car first and show you what we've got. So this will come from under the battery tray, then it will come down the side of the car. It normally comes down the left hand side of the car from sitting in it. You have two tails off for your washer bottle pump, and you've got your starter solenoid that will go onto the starter motor on that side. They can move over to the other side if needed, depending on which engine application. You've then got the very front of the car, you've got your headlamps for the left, headlamps for the right, your turn signal for that side, turn signal for the other. That's got the double loop, so one will go into your nose cone for your front repeater, one will go for the side repeater that goes on the front wing. Got the wiring for your fan, that connects straight up to the fan. Just check you get them the right way around, you don't want your fan running backwards. And you've also got your horn that sits in the front of the V of the chassis, that again got its location point now on the new Gen 2. Within your loom as well, you'll get a corresponding bag of connectors. All these white connectors actually match the connector here, so you can then terminate your light, your fan, whichever part it is, to match with that. It comes with a sheet that gives you the basic layout of the loom, what each one does and what each colour does, and then we've got a spreadsheet with the same thing on as well, and we've also got a basic layout of the fuse board. So with them documents you can actually identify what goes where and connect it up. We've also got a little extension loom for those that want to, that goes into your headlamp bowls. Just plugs onto the back of the ball, does your side lamp, and then will connect straight on. So that's the front section of your loom, which is relatively straightforward. We'll then carry on. We've then got the centre section of the loom. So we've got your wiper motor there. We've then got your engine link. So this links into the engine. So depending on what engine application you've got, we'll connect here. We'll have a look at that in a moment and all the various different looms for that. Also in the centre, we've got the plug. All labelled up, that's for your flasher relay. Just make sure to get the right type of flasher relay depending on what indicators you get going with. If you're running LED lights everywhere, make sure it's an LED flasher relay rather than the old capacitor type. We've then got your brake reservoir. So as part of the IVA requirement, you've got to have a low level warning lamp for your brake fluid, so this will come through and go onto the reservoir. You've got your reverse light switch. That drops down and goes back into the transmission tunnel, straight onto the side of the gearbox. We've then got the ignition barrel. So depending on whether you're Ford or Mazda or just having a switch, you've got your main feed in, your ignition out, your auxiliary and your start solenoid. And in the paperwork it tells you what each one does and what it connects to, whether that's a Ford or Mazda, the corresponding colours. You've then got your connection for your instruments. Depending on which instruments you've got, we've got a sub loom, which again we'll have a look into in just a second. We've got your connection for your column stalks. Again, depending if it's Ford or Mazda, we'll have a look at that in a minute. And also your auxiliary switches as a separate little loom, which again we'll have a closer look at. Then the loom then runs down the centre of the tunnel of the car. Part way down, and where your handbrake goes, you have your handbrake switch, which again puts the light on the dash, which is also connected to the low level. So this is the internal warning, so you can test the lamp as part of the IVA test. We've then also got the wiring for the speedo sensor. This normally picks up on a little inductive sensor on the prop shaft bolts, and the colours are on there. You've got your feed, your earth, and then your signal. Then the loom then comes around the back of the car, then above your diff. We've then got the earth point for the rear section of the loom, and there's a fixing point just on the right hand side of the chassis there. There is the switch for the brake lamp. So there's a little hydraulic switch that goes in the 4-way T at the back of the chassis that's mounted on the bracket. That just goes on there for your brake lights. We've got the fuel level sensor, which goes onto the top of the tank. It's also got the earth in there for the fuel tank, which is again an IVA requirement that the tank has got to be earthed. So that's all taken care of there. The loom then goes round, so you've got your low pressure fuel pump. So now on the new Gen 2s, the actual fuel pump and everything is mounted onto the fuel tank itself. So this will just come around nicely, connect it to the fuel lines, so tie it up to the fuel lines to the pump, straight onto the tank. Your lighting then, you've got your near side and off side rear lights. So that's your right hand side with your fog lamp, number plate lamp that goes in the centre, and the left hand side and your reverse lamp. If you've got a left hand drive car, we can just pull the wires back and just swap them over. Again, it's one to remember before you've glued the tank in and everything, so you can get to it. It's quite nice these when you're doing it to actually put the wires coming from the rear light coming through the arcs and put the plug on the back. It seals it and stops the dirt and everything getting into it. Makes it a little bit trickier to take a wing off on a light if you ever need to, but it protects the connection and keeps it a lot cleaner and drier. So that's the main chassis harness as a basic overview of how it goes together, and then we'll have a look at the individual bits now that connect into it. Now we'll have a look at the individual bits that connect into the main harness. So we'll start by looking at the stalks. So options on the stalks will depend on what column you're running, whether that's Ford or Mazda or whether you're just having standalone switches. It will cater for them all. So what we offer, if you send us your original stalks back, whether the Ford ones or the Mazda, in this case these are the Ford stalks, if you leave a length of wire on, normally about 200mm, so it clears nice, we'll then put the corresponding plug on, and we've got a little test rig, so we'll test it all, make sure all the functions work and everything. This then plugs straight into your main loom. So it's really simple, straight in, and that will all work. And if you are going for a separate sort, we can just do a standalone plug with the tails on, and we'll give you the pin out with that tells you what each one goes to. So if you're just going to run on toggle switches, push buttons, or even we've started to do a few now of the buttons on the steering wheel that are wireless. We've got a little adapter loom that will plug straight into that as well, so you have no stalks at all on your column. Makes it really simple. So depending on what you're after, the main harness will cater for all the various options. We'll look on to the next part of the loom. So we've also got on the car the lower dash loom. So not everyone wants to run the hazards on the stalks, and there's the washer button, the hazard if you want, you can have a separate start button, you've got your fog lamp button, you've got your 12-volt socket as well for running your phone charger or any auxiliary power you want. So you have your plug here, which is for all your auxiliary switches, and also on your loom diagram, it actually tells you what each one does and how it works. We then have the separate little sub loom. This then connects to that, and then you can connect up your individual switches. So for instance, we've got the hazard one there, your washers. So if you're putting the aluminium stalks on, you lose the hazard function off the stalk, so we have a separate button for the washer. We've then got the engine start and your rear fog. So they're wire into that there. It's all on your diagram. It's fairly straightforward. We really have tried to make the whole thing as simple, as user friendly as possible, and there's full technical support in here, so if anyone isn't sure or got any questions, we can help you throughout the installation, but you shouldn't really need too much help because it's pretty straightforward. So that's that part, and we'll go on and have a look at the next bit. Now we'll have a look at the instrumentation and the dashboard of the car. So again, on your main harness, you have the plug there. This is the connection for all the instruments, depending on what type you go. So we've got a couple of options. We've got the AIMS type digital display. This is a full colour digital display. We also do the race technology one. On this one, we're going to have a look at the Smiths, just because that's the most popular. So we have your Smiths instruments. They normally come boxed with all the sensors and everything. So you have your 6 instruments. You've then got your wiring loom that we supply with the Smiths instruments. So when you buy the instruments, you get the corresponding loom that connects into the main harness. So we've got your water temperature, oil pressure, voltage, fuel. You've got your speedo, which can be in miles an hour or kilometres, depending where you are. And then we have your tacho. What's quite nice on the Smiths instruments, I don't know whether you can see on there, but the tacho has all the warning lights built in. So it's a requirement for IVA and to be very legal that you have the warning lamp. So you've got to have your telltales for indicators, left and right, your hazard, your rear fog, the illumination, and main beam. They're nicely built into the clock, so you have a really nice clean dash with no separate warning lights on or anything. So what we've got, once your clocks are mounted into your dash, you've then got your sub harness. The sub harness will actually connect them into each switch, into each instrument. Just in turn will connect. You've just got to get them in the right order. So on, and then the main harness itself will just plug straight into the car. So it's quite nice that you can build your whole dashboard up on the bench, get all your instruments in, get the wiring on the back, get it all really nice and neat and clipped up. You can offer it up into the scuttle on the car, just reach behind, plug it in, and it's going to work. Makes the whole installation really simple, really nice. And we're trying to engineer in all the way through reliability, getting the wiring right, getting it all spec'd, gives you reliability in your car. Right, so that's the instrumentation side of the loom covered. We're now going to have a look at the engine, which is probably not the most complicated, but there's the most options for the engine, because the Zero will take a number of different engine options, whether that be a really old-fashioned type engine that's still running on points, or whether it be the latest EcoBoost engine. We've kind of got options for either, so depending where you are, we'll have a look at a few, give you an idea of how it works, and then cover the 2 most common engines. So you have your engine link. This will go just above the gearbox in the transmission tunnel. This is a fully waterproof plug because it is a little bit more exposed than the others. So on there, we've then got an engine link. So, and this will come with a diagram. So if you're running an older type engine, say we're looking at a Pinto running points and that, which is very basic wiring, you just go with the engine link with all the corresponding wires, and you just use your main ones for your ignition and your tacho going back, and then your sensors that will link back up to your dash there, whether that's oil, water, so on. That can also then be adapted for different engine applications of your choice. So if you're doing something that's a little bit different to normal, this can be then adapted to suit. So that covers off all the sort of more random engines, and then we have the main looms for the common engines. So we'll have a look at the Zetec first. So your Zetec loom as an engine loom comes as a separate piece. Again, everything comes fully labelled up. They're all bench tested before they go out, so we can ensure the quality and we know everything's going to work for you. So let's have a look. So your engine loom, what we have here is all your sensing engines. So you have the connection to the main chassis harness. This gives all the power to the engine harness, and then all the communication back into the main harness for your instrumentations and so on goes into there. So this one will just plug straight in there. You then have your connection for the ECU. In this case we're running the Emerald ECU. We'll have a look at the ECU in just a second. This then will come through the transmission tunnel, poking out just behind the engine, and then this will be clipped up onto the engine, and then all the wiring will actually run around the engine. So on the Z-Tech, you have the fuel pump. So on a fuel injection engine, they all run a high pressure pump. So as part of the engine harness, if it's an injection engine, it's got the fuel pump. This will then just come down into the footwell on the inlet side, and your swirl pot and fuel pump are connected there. And the ECU will then excite the fuel pump through the relays that are already in your main harness box. You've then got all the sensors and everything on this loom. So going around the engine, you've got your coil pack, got your water temperature, so that then links back up to your Smith's gauges or to your aims or whichever. Lambda sensor, which you run so you can run full closed loop control on your engine, which helps with emissions. Water sensor, again, this is the ECU sensor, so this one goes into the ECU. What we have done, if you're not running the Smith's instrument and you're running the AIMS or the race technology, you can actually run them CAN bus, so you can utilise all the engine sensors and direct link from the ECU to the dash and be able to display a lot more information. We'll probably look at that in a separate video because that's quite a bit more involved. You've got your air temperature, then on your engine you've got your alternator plug, just for exciting the alternator, oil pressure sensor and the warning lamp for the oil pressure, air temp, you've got your cam phase sensor, all your injectors, and then your throttle position sensor. So these are all mounted onto the engine, and this will give you all the sensors you need onto the engine. We do a similar one for the Duratec, so there's different options. So that's the Z-Tech loom covered. Then say you're building a Mazda, so you wouldn't go with the Z-Tech loom, you would go with the Mazda harness instead. Very similar. Plug straight in. All your water temperatures there, your fuel pump, everything very similar to the Z-Tech. The only difference on the Mazda is there's quite a few variants of the Mazda engine, with it being a donor based kit. There's different years of engine, different configuration, whether it's a 1.6, a 1.8, whether it's got VVT, twin coil packs, so on. There's quite a few variants. So what we do is we reuse your original plugs. So what we ask you to do is, if you can send us back your plugs from your coil packs, the crank sensor or the module on the cam, which is your crank and cam pickup, we'll then know what engine you've got. We'll reuse them plugs, put them onto the loom, so we know it's all going to work, it'll all be tested, and then that will match your engine. Makes life really easy. This has then got all the injectors on the same, your ignition packs, everything the same. The only other point on this, if you're running it on throttle bodies, we put the Bosch timers plug on. We've done the Bosch injectors on the throttle body. If you're using the plenum chamber that we've just done for the Mazda, where it utilises the original injectors, just let us know at the time of ordering and we'll put the original Mazda plugs on, so it's all compatible to save messing about. So that is your engine loom, and then we'll have a look at the two ECU options that we do. Just going to have a look at the ECU now. So this is the Mazda harness. It's got the plug on for the Emerald K6 ECU. We do quite a lot with Emerald. Really nice package, nice company to work with. The support and backup from Emerald's really good. So when your ECU comes, it will come in the box. It's some stickers and bits. You get your two sensors, so you get your water temperature and your air temperature sensor. Water obviously goes into your thermostat housing or your water rail. The air just goes into the back plate of your throttle bodies just to get the air intake temperature. Comes with all the software and the instruction manuals all on there, so it's worth having a bit of a read through that. You can download it as well off the website, and it comes with the comms lead as well, so this is for programming and setting up your ECU. You may need a USB to comms adapter. What we'll probably do, if people are interested, if they want to comment on that, we can do a more in-depth look at the ECU, how you set it up, how you connect it to the computer and all that stuff. If people are interested, just let us know and we'll do one. So your ECU comes nicely packed up. We pre-configure the ECU as well, so at the time of ordering, if you let us know that it's a Zetec, it's a Mazda, we'll put a base map ready in the ECU for you. So it should, in theory, just start up and be able to run from out the box. So your ECU connects straight into your harness. This is mounted under the scuttle on the passenger side, so it keeps it nice and safe, nice and dry, out of the way. Just make sure when you do mount it though that you leave room for the connection for the plug on the back. So you can actually get in to get the plug on. We've had it a few times where people have mounted it really close to the top or the bottom, and it's a bit of a bugger to connect the cable to it. So that's your Emerald option, which we're doing a lot with the Zetec and Mazda. We then also run the Life Racing F88 ECU, which we've been using on the 2.5 litre Duratec. A little bit more sophisticated ECU, got quite a few more features in there, a few more safety features and things, and then we do a corresponding loom that's then got the Bosch type plug for the Life ECU. Again, if people are interested, we can do a more in-depth look at that. We get the computer on it, show you the software and some of the features it's got over the Emerald, and so we can look at what suits your application better. So that, as an overview, is the whole electrical system for the Zero and the whole architecture of how it all works. We've tried to make it as simple as we can for people, really high quality, everything all labelled, plug and play, everything's pre-tested before it leaves, so we know it's all going to work. There's full technical support on it, so if you're not sure at any time, always just ring up and ask. There's never a stupid question, we're always here to help. And if anyone's got any questions on that, please give one of the team a call, and thank you for watching.